Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're unpacking a case that is, honestly, one of the most chilling, tangled, and just deeply disturbing cold cases in modern history. We're talking about the Vatican Girl, the vanishing of Emanuela Orlandi. Now, you should know right up front, this is not just your typical missing persons case. It's this massive, sprawling mystery that literally reaches into the absolute highest echelons of global power. I want you to just imagine this for a second. A 15-year-old girl vanishes, poof, right off the face of the earth. And she leaves behind a mystery that has haunted her family, and really the whole world, for over 40 years. 40 years. That is 4 decades of unanswered questions, 4 decades of crazy rumors. If you can kind of picture the sheer weight of all that time passing, well, you begin to understand the massive open wound this case is for her family, and honestly, for the entire city of Rome. To really grasp how bizarre this whole thing is, you have to look at the core paradox here. Emanuela actually lived inside the ultra-secure walled borders of Vatican City. We're talking about a sovereign country that's literally smaller than a golf course, but it's fortified with armed guards and top-tier security. And yet, she vanished in the sprawling, super busy streets of central Rome, just right outside those walls. Going from what is arguably one of the safest places on Earth to just completely disappearing, it's absolutely staggering. Section 1. The day she vanished. So before we get into the exact timeline of that day, we need to understand who Emanuela really was. She was an actual citizen of Vatican City, and her father, he worked directly for the Holy See, basically the universal government of the Catholic Church. And this just adds such an incredible layer of institutional weight to who she was. She wasn't just some local teenager going about her day. She was, quite literally, a child of the Vatican. Okay, so everything changes on a seemingly normal Wednesday, June 22nd, 1983. The day starts out completely routine, right? In the afternoon, Emanuela hops on a bus to go to her music school over in central Rome. She finishes up her flute class, totally normal. Then, early evening rolls around and she makes this quick phone call to her sister. But by that night, she doesn't come home. And that's when the frantic search begins. Just like that, an ordinary day flips into an absolute nightmare. Now, let's talk about that early evening phone call, because it's the final and, frankly, highly suspicious clue she left behind. During that call, she told her sister that she'd been approached by this mysterious Avon Cosmetics representative who offered her a job. And get this, it was for a pretty hefty sum of money just to hand out some flyers at a fashion show. It's super weird, right? And tragically, that was the very last time her family ever heard her voice. Section 2. A web of theories. What starts off as a local missing person search very quickly spirals into this massive, crazy web of international intrigue. As the months drag on, you start seeing these bizarre phone calls and super cryptic ransom notes popping up. And because of all that, investigators basically find themselves looking at 3 wildly different, totally explosive theories. We're talking terrorism, a massive mob scandal, and deep institutional silence. Let's break these down. So, theory number 1 thrusts this entire case right into the middle of Cold War-era geopolitics. Some of those anonymous callers, they claimed Emanuela was being held hostage for a very specific political trade. They were demanding the release of a man named Mehmet Ali Aja. And if that name sounds familiar to you, well, he's the Turkish gunman who literally attempted to assassinate Pope John Paul II back in 1981. So this theory basically suggests Emanuela was used as a pawn in this massive, high-stakes game of international terrorism. But hey, if international terrorism wasn't terrifying enough, the second theory ties her disappearance straight to the mafia. More specifically, it points to the Banda della Magliana, which was this incredibly ruthless Roman criminal syndicate. But listen, this wasn't just regular street crime. This theory actually links her kidnapping to the absolute highest levels of financial corruption. Like, we're talking tying the mob to the collapsing financial empires of both Banco Ambrosiano and the Vatican Bank. It basically suggests Emanuela was leveraged to settle some major scores in this huge underground financial scandal. And then, finally, we have the third theory, and this one really focuses on the so-called wall of silence. You see, for decades, Emanuela's family faced nothing but closed doors and pure stonewalling from Vatican officials. And this absolute refusal to just share information, it led a lot of people to suspect a really deep-seated cover-up. You have to wonder, was the truth buried just to protect someone hiding inside those highly secure walls? For her family, this institutional silence has been, without a doubt, one of the most agonizing parts of this whole ordeal. Section 3.
The fight for truth. Now, the story of Emanuela Orlandi did not just fade away into history, and that is entirely due to her family. For decades now, Emanuela's brother, Pietro Orlandi, has waged this relentless, absolutely tireless campaign for justice. I mean, he has literally stood outside courtrooms holding framed photos of his sister, just demanding that the Vatican finally open up its archives so they can find the truth. His dedication is just this incredible testament to a family's unbreakable bond.
And the crucial point here, the reason why this case is still so incredibly relevant today, is that Pietro's pressure is actually working. In recent years, his campaign has literally forced both the Italian parliament and the Vatican itself to launch these super rare formal inquiries into the cold case. Investigators are out there actively reviewing old testimonies, they're targeting false statements, and they're chasing down brand new leads. For the first time in a long time, it feels like the momentum is really shifting. Which brings us to this pretty incredible revelation. In what is honestly a massive breakthrough, the Vatican's own promoter of justice officially confirmed that there is a confidential dossier on Emanuela. Yeah, a file they had basically sidestepped and avoided even acknowledging for generations. The very fact that the Vatican is now coming out, admitting this file exists and saying they're looking into it, that marks a completely unprecedented step forward in the search for the truth here. But even as investigators chase these new leads, no definitive trace of Emanuela has ever been found. Her face still haunts the cobblestone streets of Rome to this day. So more than 40 years later, we are all left wondering, what do you think finally happened to the Vatican Girl? Was it this crazy Cold War pawn game, a mob hit tied to a massive financial collapse, or is it some dark secret buried deep inside the Holy See? It's a mystery that absolutely demands an answer. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer.